Thank you for listening to the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast. Please support the show by subscribing to and leaving a 5-star rating for the show on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podbean, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and any of your favorite podcast platforms. You can also support the show by going to our website, blackandgoldhockey.com, where there's always exciting articles by the B&G writing staff. While you're there, don't forget to click on the fanatics.com banner for a great sports fan shopping experience.
Hey, are you done yet? We gotta start the show.
Behind the net to Sanderson, Orr! Bobby Orr! Orr from the Boston Bruins!
30 seconds left in the period. The Bruins are shorthanded. Ray Bourque.
Ray Bourque from the face-off circle to the right of Reggie Whitman. Fired it down and Whitmore blew it.
Did he ever?
To Bergeron on the drive, save, rebound, he's loose, saving, kicks him loose, Bergeron scores! Patrice Bergeron, with the point of the dagger in their throats, they ripped it out of Toronto's hands and killed the beast! The Boston Bruins have won it after being 3 down in the third!
Hey, Black and Gold hockey fans. As previously mentioned to start the show, and YouTube members, this is going to be on YouTube, but we're going to use the audio for the podcast too. So I'm really excited, really pumped to have my friend Mike Hickey from St. John, Newfoundland. Hopefully I said that right.
You didn't. It's St. John's with the S, Newfoundland.
All right.
No, it's fine. It's no one ever gets it right on the first try, Mark. Don't worry, man.
But Mike is one of 3 awesome co-hosts on the Third Man In podcast. This is a podcast that I have started listening to since day one, and I'm hooked. I'm absolutely hooked. Mike does a fantastic job, and he is the better part of the podcast because he's a Bruins fan.
Aw.
I know I'm going to get shit for that from Charles and probably TR, but speaking of his other.
Sorry. I gotta turn off.
Speaking of his other co-hosts, Charles and Terry Ryan, former NHL player, fantastic story himself. So why don't we just get started with how did you become a Bruins fan from so far away?
It's pretty easy here. It's one of those things where Newfoundland is a common stop for Irish Catholics on their way from Ireland to Boston. So I ended up with a bunch of family down that way. And so it was always something the family was kind of tied to. I grew up in I was born in the mid 80s in Canada. So like everybody else, I kind of was rooting for that Oilers team as like a little kid. And then as I kind of got a little bit older, I briefly and like very misguidedly had a stint where I spent a couple years when I started playing in net, really rooting for Patty Watt and the Canadians. Mostly, I think just the really like just bug my grandpa, like bug Pop, just because he hated him so much. And I think it was just one of those things to get him riled up. And then after Waugh got traded away, I was like, it was one of those things where like my affiliation was never really that tight to the habit. I've been a Bruins fan kind of. It was one of those like secretly rooting for them in the background all the time anyway. It was like a weird thing where like as a kid, I didn't really understand that I was supposed to hate them. And like for the couple of years I was rooting for the Habs, but kind of set, it was one of those things that like once I kind of accepted that I was a Bruins fan, I kind of got really big into it. It was around the time, like I always loved Cam Neely. I've got an 8 tattooed on my arm.
Nice.
The greatest power forward of all time, if you ask me, and I will fight you and lose because I'm not as good at that stuff as Cam Neely is. But just grew up loving the Bruins. I had family. I have a cousin who apparently it was like one of those family lore things where I had a cousin who dated Bobby Orr during his rookie season with the team, which I thought was a really big deal until I got older and realized like a lot of girls in Boston dated Bobby Orr his rookie season.
Well, you're hanging out with Derek Sanderson too. You get that that famous whatever.
Yeah, I've heard and I've read some stories. So it's just one of those things. When you were a kid, it was like a much bigger deal and stuff, and so it just kind of was a thing. And it's been 25 years of, really digging in and rooting for the team. It was hard because when I kind of hit as a Bruins fan was around the same time that it was within a year or two of that. Within a year or two of me really like kind of digging in as a Bruins fan, Neely retired. They moved out of the Boston Garden into TD, and they missed the playoffs for the first time in like a bajillion years. It was like one of those things where it was a rough go, but then of course they got Joe Thornton and it was like a whole thing. So it's been a roller coaster for 25 years, obviously, but it's been, it's been good. At the same time, my wife is a huge Bruins fan too. It was one of those things that we kind of joked about when we started dating because, she grew up a Bruins fan, also a big Cam Neely fan. And when we first started dating, like 3 months in, her mom saw the tattoo on my arm because Maria wore 8 as a kid when she played minor hockey and stuff. And her mom saw that I had an 8 tattooed on my arm, and she didn't know anything about like me. And she was just like, "So, how long have you had the tattoo?" I was dating her for like 3 months. She's like, I was like, "Yes, no, clearly I got her minor hockey number tattooed on my arm."
you stalker.
2 months in, yeah. But yeah, no, it's been something that's just been a big part of everything now for the last, like I said, like 25 years or so.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, congratulations to you and your wife on the marriage. That's
thanks.
awesome
Yeah,
news.
it's been a couple months now. Yeah, it's good. It's going good.
That's awesome, man. I'm really happy for you both.
Thank you.
Moving, your passion. And now, I would definitely see that from somebody like myself or somebody in my area, in the Boston area. But from you being so far away, and your allegiance to Boston is just tremendous. And I really got to see that. And I hope I'm not putting you on a spot here, but there was one time in the playoffs that you guys did a stream on Facebook, I believe. And I thoroughly enjoyed that until the end when I saw you a whole nother side. And I was like, wow, he really, really loves this freaking team because just the anger. I don't even know. Was it an overtime game?
It wasn't. It was it was game 5, I think.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't 7.
Game 5. It wasn't game 7 because I refused to do game 7 just out of like. But yeah, we TR was on the road or something that week. It was something was on the road, and he was on the road, I think, or tied up with something, and we weren't going to be able to do a regular episode. So we decided that instead of a regular episode, we were going to live stream us watching the game.
Yeah.
And so we set up a camera in the living room. It was me and Chuck and my fiance at the time, now wife, watching. And like I said, me and her are both huge Bruins fans, and watching the game. And yeah, it was a rough one because it wasn't even like I don't think, and I'd have to almost look it up, but I don't think that was even close. Like I feel like that was a game that they lost like by a bunch, and I just was not, and it was one of those things like I'm a very competitive person. I get really kind of caught up, and I get upset, and I get all the things that a fan, I'm a very passionate fan. I can get kind of riled up, and yeah, I was not good by the end of it.
I'm just happy Charles, a diehard Maple Leafs fan, was not like, all over you like, hey,
no, he's good that way. And I mean, we're kind of good. We're kind of good in that regard. I mean, it's kind of funny. People ask us kind of how a Habs fan, not even a Habs fan, a former Hab, a guy who grew up cheering for that team and then ended up playing for them, how a Hab, a Leafs fan, and a Bruins fan can manage to like coexist in a podcast. And it's just something where it's just a respect thing. It's like, I think we're all in the boat of, it's a kind of golden rule, black and golden rule, I guess, where it's, you kind of only chirp as much as you yourself would be up for taking in that scenario. Like you gotta step out and go, okay, if this wasn't me on the winning side of this or whatever, if my team was losing the way that this guy's team is losing right now, like even whatever, like it's like how much would you be willing to take yourself? And that's kind of as far as any of us kind of push it back and forth. And I mean, it's a different dynamic anyway with Terry, just because like he's a former player, so like it's a completely different animal for him because he's coming at it from a different point of view than us completely. But it's something that we kind of learned quickly the right level. Because like I said, like I have another buddy who is a bit more in terms of a bit more chirpy, but it's because, you know, me and him always make an annual bet for a case of beer and a steak dinner for the Leafs Bruins series every time it comes up. And so he's kept me quite drunk and full of steak, luckily. I assume he probably will again, but you know, it's good. But yeah, I was really grateful that night. Like I think it was one of those things too, where he kind of quickly got how I am with it. And when he saw it happening, he's just like, yeah, man, no, like I can't. He was threatening, like, I think he showed up, I think in a like Shanahan jersey, in like a Shanahan Leaf or Bruins or Blues jersey. Sorry. And like, yeah, he was just kind of quickly just like, I should dial back here. I shouldn't push it too hard. Cause I don't think it was a cup clinch. Like, I don't think they had the chance to clinch the cup that night, but I think it was one of those, like, it would have put a nail that would have been hard to come back from. And, you know, and then I was much worse a couple nights later when Game 7 happened. And I'm still not over Marchand bailing on that fucking back check. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. I'm sorry.
No, this is my show. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that fucking little rat. Oh man, it was like, I understand how everybody else in the world of hockey who's not a Bruins fan feels about Brad Marchand. Yeah. That's kind of what I've been holding on to all summer, of just like, I get why you guys hate him so much. And now, like, you know, the season will start in a couple weeks and I'll be like, I love this kid, but like for right now, I'm still just like, fuck you.
It's an off season of butthurt, but all of a sudden October 3rd comes around and it's like, it's all good now.
Yeah, he was here this week. Actually, he wasn't in St. John's. He was in Newfoundland. He was down on the south coast, and he got his caribou. Yeah, he was hunting. He got a caribou. So
it was huge too.
Yeah, it was a big caribou. But yeah, I saw some pictures pop up online of it and stuff, and it was good. I saw him. He kind of hung around the community and like took pictures with a bunch of people. Got some pictures with some Leafs fans and stuff too. But it was like, you know, anybody who was a Bruins fan kind of showed up, and there's a lot of them here. Oh, yeah. You know, like I said, it's something where, because of kind of so many people stop on the way, you know, Newfoundland was such a kind of a stop off on the way. You know, it's kind of the first land you see after you leave Ireland or whatever, or all that kind of British Isles, the people who emigrated to the US, a lot of them stopped along the way in Newfoundland. So like a lot of people got off, and there's family and there's all those kinds of ties and stuff. And so it was kind of really easy to get it in that. Newfoundland's never had a NHL team. So, you know, especially during that original 6 era, Boston, Toronto, Montreal were kind of the 3 closest teams. There's a lot of Red Wings fans here too, because the first Newfoundlander to play was Alex Faulkner, who played for the Red Wings back in, I think he broke in like 1960. And so there's a lot of Red Wings fans here too. But yeah, like Leafs, Habs, and Bruins are probably kind of the biggest kind of pockets of fans around here for sure.
That's awesome. Talk about the podcast and how that whole thing came up, how you guys all got together, and especially adding TR and his level, because like I said, I'm a huge fan of the show, but also I'm a bigger fan of the proponent of you guys, men's health and making sure that your melon's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's kind of creeped out just through conversation and stuff. Obviously, it was never something that was on our front burner as like something that we wanted to really bring forward. But it was just a case. It was literally like I had a podcast before. I do a lot of horror movie stuff as well. And so I had a podcast before for this web series I do for Crypt TV called Fright Hype that I've been doing for like 4.5 years now. And we had a podcast with that for a while. So I kind of had a little bit of experience with it. I also helped a couple guys who had a Blue Jays podcast going for a while. I produced for them for a little bit. And so I had been out of the game for a year or so, hadn't really done much. And I was sitting back one night and, you know, I was at home. Hockey Night in Canada was on. I was on Twitter, like TR and Charles were both, I guess, watching and like half live tweeting Hockey Night in Canada kind of thing. And they were both guys who I was thinking to myself, like, I've known Charles for a long time, sat around a bunch of bars with Charles having conversations and stuff. He was a guy I knew would be kind of a cool voice to have on a podcast. And I knew, obviously, I've known TR for a long time now. And we go back a ways and we play hockey together, like pickup hockey. And, we worked together on some like film stuff in the past and different things, and just kind of know each other from the community. And so I knew both the guys would probably be good for it. And I was like, well, I could also kind of pitch them together. and talking about hockey, and that could be kind of our thing. I knew TR's book. I knew that he had a bunch of connections. Like I knew his book kind of grew out of his book, Tales of a First Round Nothing. If you haven't read it, it's bonkers in the best way.
Yeah.
But he talks in his he talks in the book about how it all came from him journaling. Like his dad, who was a teacher, really encouraged, who's also just an incredible guy. If anybody's been watching Chicklets, they know.
Oh yeah.
How, again, bonkers is a good word, but Senior is a character and he's great. But he really encouraged Terry to, read and write a lot while he was on the road and all that. And so he journaled like every day. So he had all these journals of experiences that he had. And that's kind of what the book came from. I was like, well, if the books came from his journals, then he could do a podcast that comes from his address book, because along that way, he's picked up so many contacts and whatever. And so we could start bringing in guests and interviews and stuff. And from the gate, we were really lucky. We had Ken Reed on, our first guest, Ken, who I don't know how much you guys know Ken. Ken's host of, or one of the co-anchors of Sportsnet Central, which is like one of the national sports channels, like flagship shows, so Ken is and he's been really supportive of us from day one. He was our first guest. Like I said, we had Teddy Purcell on not long after. He was our second guest. Then we had Aaron Asham came out for episode 3.
That was a good one.
Had Jim Cuddy from Blue Rodeo, who most people know as a musician, but is also a huge hockey fan. He plays hockey. He's a great dude. He came on for episode 4, and we just kind of grew that way. And so it quickly became a thing where we talked about hockey, not only as just, what's happening in the NHL right now, but it became conversations about kind of fandom, not just fandom, but also experiences of players, but kind of how hockey is such kind of a uniting force. It's like, if you're a fan, if you're a player, if you're whatever, how hockey kind of builds your, how it can be such a huge part of people's lives and either shape them or kind of influenced things and all that kind of stuff. And then from that, I mean, we also talk a lot. TR has been really open about, he had post-concussion syndrome really bad. It really affected his career. Head Check Health came on board as a sponsor for us. Like right out of the gate, we were in conversation with them before the first episode went up, and they've been sponsoring since episode 2.
That's awesome.
And, but through that, conversations about mental health and men's health and all those things have kind of come out of that. All 3 of us have kind of had, different issues and different things over time. And so we're kind of realizing that, having a chance for the 3 of us even to talk about it. The past episode, we kind of got into it a little bit more than we have in the past, even talking about mental health issues and some things like that. Because TR has been getting some people reaching out to him since he, done some other stuff. And so, yeah, it's been this really kind of rewarding thing to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah. It's I just like the dynamic that you guys bring. I mean, there's so many avenues that you guys touch on that make it interesting. There's a serious level. There's the hockey that I love, and then there's the comedy. I mean, I had people seriously looking. I work in a room by myself, so there's no distractions, and I get my stuff done. And I have my earbuds in, and I'm doing my thing. But when TR was talking about the wedding, and he was like looking for
his wedding? Oh man,
for a joint, and all of a sudden his buddy's like, "Hey, here's these mushrooms." I lost it.
Yeah,
Absolutely lost it. And people are looking at it. Are you all right? We thought you had a heart attack. I'm like, no, you got to listen to these fucking guys. This is amazing. Great content.
And yeah, it's also like, that was his advice. Like it was basically, I think Chuck said, so TR, like Mike's getting married in a couple of weeks, got any advice for him? And it was like, well, let me tell you a story about why you shouldn't do shrooms and give a speech at your own wedding. And I was like, oh, how is that even on the radar of things I need to be warned about and advised on, right? But it's great. It's so
damn good content. Yeah, you guys do it.
Yeah, it's just been fun because again, we're TR and Chuck, I kind of knew each other back and forth from Twitter and stuff, but I think the first time the 2 of them were really sat down was like a day, about a month or so before we launched, where we sat down, the 3 of us, to kind of make sure that we would work in a room together. And it's kind of, we're 3 guys who talk a lot and somehow have managed to find a good dynamic within that and managed to kind of ebb and flow and not step on each other too much. And, we have guests call in most of the time. We're getting ready to do a live, which is going to be one of the few times a guest is going to be in the room with us.
Yeah, I'm pumped for that one.
It's going to be fun. We're recording. It's happening next week. It's while Leafs camp is here. So Leafs training camp is here this year.
Nice.
And so some guys from the Athletic are coming down. They're doing a live thing on the Sunday, but Saturday the 14th, we're doing we're recording live. We're not live streaming it, but we're recording it live in the room at the Rec Room here in St. John's, talking about some guests that we're likely going to have. TR mentioned a couple on the podcast last week, but I don't want to say anything until we actually have somebody booked at this point. But we're really excited about it, and that one should drop the next Tuesday as like our weekly episode that week. So anybody who can't make it out will be able to get it there.
That's awesome. I'm so
It'll be fun.
Yeah. So let's bring it back to a little bit more Bruins. Oh, before I do that, I gotta ask you. You've met Biz Nasty, right? Paul Bissonette?
I haven't.
You haven't yet?
I haven't. No.
Oh.
I was, because their schedule was just pure insanity. The week that he was here, he was only here for like a couple
3 days, right?
He was only there for like 3 days, and then they had Crosby, and Biz was, and on top of it, Biz was sick. So he mentions a couple times in all the videos that like he wasn't drinking when they were out on the boat and all this kind of stuff. So Biz wasn't feeling well, and they were only here for a couple days, and they had like this jam-packed schedule, and it was only a couple weeks before my wedding and stuff too. So I had a couple jobs, like, cause I freelance, I work from home. So I had a couple things I was trying to finish up. And on top of that, I had all kinds of stuff going on. So by the time I actually got out one night and like met up with TR, it was just TR was like the only dude left. Everybody else had gone home out of it. And so I missed him this time through, but we're hoping to have him on the show at some point in the near future. He's on our list for sure. Him and Grinelli both said they'd hop on and chat to us. Nice. So hoping to have them on soon. Yeah, and it's I'm really interested to have a conversation, like him especially from my point of view, because he's kind of in my position there, in terms of like he's the producer of the show. He handles all the tech stuff, but then still kind of gets drawn into the conversation, being part of all these things. So really kind of interesting to have a chat with him about all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But from what I hear, Biz is a beauty,
Oh yeah, from the videos I've seen, the toys that he's doing, and the spit and chicklets, anything that those guys are up to, it's just it's crazy, but it's awesome content. And I also bought my only bottle, I believe is in the southern New Hampshire area, the last one of Pink Whitney.
Oh, it's not up here yet. It's only in the US right now, but yeah, it's supposed to be coming to Canada at some point soon. I'm not sure when, but I might just grab a bottle of New Amsterdam and some pink lemonade this weekend.
Hell yeah.
Just to hold me over, or I'll drink Newfoundland Screech, because that's also a very good. It's a dark rum. I'm a rum guy.
Nice.
This is just water, but like I'm a rum guy.
Oh,
So.
in honor of you, I didn't know you had hockey to go on, but I got my big old freaking Cape Codder here, which is
oh nice,
a little bit of vodka and some cran.
Dude, it's noon there. Like
yeah, but it's noon somewhere.
Yeah, it's true. And you're on vacation, you said, right?
That's the saying in the States. If it's noon somewhere, you're technically allowed to have a drink.
That's true. I'm on
vacation, by the way.
Yeah, I know you were saying. So it's 1:30 here. So I've got probably about an hour before Buddy picks me up. And then when on the way to hockey, I'm going to stop in and like pick up a couple dozen beer for the rink. Like I'm on beer duty this week, so I got to pick up a couple on the way. But yeah, like I'll get into it pretty quick. But right now I'm still on water. So
that's awesome. So
but I'm kind of like, can I pause this and run out to the bar? I just built a tiki bar on my back deck, and I've been out there all summer. It's been great.
Yeah, I saw the pictures you sent the other day. It was
pretty yeah, I sent you. I was drunk. I don't remember that, but
it looked like it.
But yeah, we have a time out there. It's great. It's good.
So without mentioning any like premiere guests and so on, what do you guys got planned for the show for the rest of for the upcoming season?
It's hard to say, just because so much of it is just the guests. Like I said, we got the live coming up, which we're really excited about. We want to do some more of that. Depending on how this goes, this is being done. This is really cool. It's being done through Homestand Sports, who do Puck Talks, and they kind of do a series. And so, we're really excited to be working with them on this. But we're talking about doing kind of lower scale stuff ourselves. Not quite as big as this one, but we're talking about maybe doing some live, especially like we're talking about doing like maybe the Saturday nights of the matchups within us. So like if it's like Habs Leafs or Bruins Leafs or Bruins Habs or whatever, like we might do some live events somewhere and then do like a watch party with people. So we're talking about maybe doing some stuff like that, which could be kind of fun. Like I said, we have a big list. I have a chalkboard, like my whole wall here is a chalkboard, and so we have our big like kind of couple people that we have confirmed we know are coming up over the next few weeks. We've got a bunch of people who are like our wish list and all that kind of stuff. And so we have all that there. But it's just kind of finding some new ways to do things. We're trying to be a little bit better. Like, you know, social media stuff, trying to stay on top of all that is hard. Trying to be a little bit more on top of that stuff and be more regular with posts, especially for things like, you know, just like stay on top of Instagram. Like I did a couple things the last couple days to make sure we're getting some content out there. You know, the Growlers are back, the Newfoundland Growlers, which are our ECHL franchise. They're the Leafs affiliate, but they're in town. Hopefully anyway, they're still like renegotiating their lease agreement or something. So hopefully they'll be in town.
Hey, is Zach O'Brien coming back?
From what I hear, Zach's coming back. I think Marcus Power will be back. James Melindi. I think most of the boys, especially local guys, except Party, Adam Party, who used to play in the NHL. Adam retired.
Winnipeg,
so other than him, everybody else I think is coming back. Yeah, which will be cool.
Yeah, because I was a Manchester Monarchs season ticket holder for a while.
Okay, cool.
So we saw not the Mooseheads. What was the St. John's team?
Ice Caps,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Eddie Pasquale and
Eddie Pasquale. It's funny. Eddie Pasquale played for that team a bunch because he played because Ice Caps started as a Jets affiliate.
Yep. And
then the Jets moved the team back to I think they just moved it back to Winnipeg. Like I think they're in town or they're Thunder Bay or something like that. But they moved it
now.
Yeah, so they moved it back to be closer just because, you know, you can't call somebody up on a day and fly because, I mean, I'm going to Winnipeg on Monday for work, but I know that, like, if I don't catch a 6 a.m. flight to be there for 9, I'm not getting there till the next day. It's like one of those, a really weird window to try to pull off. But then after a couple of years, they became the Habs affiliate for 2 seasons.
Yep.
And then he wound up in that organization and came back again. Actually, Eddie just got married this summer, too. He married a girl from my hometown.
Nice.
So he just married a Newfoundland girl. But so yeah, Eddie just got married. But yeah, he was around a bunch for kind of all those teams. And a friend of mine who, if you've interact with our like page Twitter or whatever, a friend of mine, Dwan, who used to chirp Eddie, like, you know, just one of those like play crush thirsty things, like where she just chirped Eddie so much. I ended up getting blocked on Twitter by him because she chirped him so much. But he was like, I'm not going to block her just in case, but I'm going to block this dude who's always tagged in these tweets with.
Guilty by association, right?
Totally. And then he like met her and unblocked or whatever. I don't know. Either way, I don't know if I'm still blocked. I might be. I don't know.
Well, anyway, everybody's got to check this podcast out. It's a Third Man In podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, and I believe a lot of
it's kind of everywhere. Yeah.
So I mean, definitely check it out. These guys are great. It's fun. It's informative. It's very just good listening, and I enjoy it. So, thank you, Mike Hickey, very much for the time today. I really appreciate it. This was something I really wanted to do over the summer, and I'm glad we had time to and more or less spur of the moment like today, but I'm glad
it was
fit this in, man.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I mean, at some point I can come back and we can actually talk about the Bruins or, you know.
Yeah, once we
actually talk about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe after a month and so on, I get some content and so on to watch, and I'd love to have you back on and do another show, and maybe
be happy to. Yeah.
Who knows? I'd love to have Charles and TR come on too. That would be absolutely amazing.
It'd be fun. Yeah, we can I'm sure we can set something up with the guys and do something like that. It'd be a laugh.
Awesome. But Mike Hickey, thank you very much. Where can we find you on Twitter?
I'm at Hickey, Mike.
And the show Twitter?
Yeah, I'm at Hickey, Mike everywhere, and the show is at 3MI Podcast everywhere.
Definitely.
You can find us that way, and yeah, there's always, like I said, I'm trying to stay on top of things. I did this really weird sort of deep cut reference William Nylander Warren Zevon joke on Instagram yesterday that some people got. It played a little bit. It wasn't as good as I wanted, but it played it well. But yeah, so there's always some stuff like that, and and the boys are at Smokes and Doors and at Terry Ryan 20 if you're looking for them on Twitter as well, because good to follow, stay on top of stuff.
I absolutely agree. I'm a huge fan of everybody on that show, and I follow every one of them, so I agree. And I highly recommend. So, Mike Hickey, thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate it.
Happy to. Thanks so much.
Thanks again for listening to and supporting the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast. Please share the show with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to and leave a 5-star rating for the show on your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Between shows, help us keep the Bruins talk going by visiting our website, blackandgoldhockey.com, by sending an email to blackandgoldhockeyblog@gmail.com, and by following the show on Twitter @blackandgoldpod.
Peace out.